Alright everyone, I'm not exactly known for clickbait, so I don't use this particular title lightly. But we've got our next Watergate, possibly bigger than Watergate. Because with the Fusion GPS, which is basically what the FISA Memo regards, material here now being dropped by House Intel, link in the description, you can go read this for yourself, it's beyond a double doozy. What we appear to be seeing here is somebody attempting to lay the groundwork to usurp the Republican function of our government entirely and attempt to stop somebody in what would otherwise be, I guess, supposedly a fair election from taking office based entirely on lies that were paid for by the opposition to that candidate, literally the other political party and its candidate at the time, Hillary Rodham Clinton and the DNC. And then was used as a way to conduct further research, including presumably after election, by people within the FBI loyal to that other group. That's pretty troublesome. And it all ties into Christopher Steele's Fusion GPS stuff. Now, Fusion GPS, you got to realize that Nellie Orr, who's mentioned in here, who was working for the CIA, was also working for Fusion. That was something that people noticed. I think back in 2017, people are already talking about that. What appears to have happened, though, is this. Here's the rough layout. Here's what I'm gathering as a rough timeline. The DNC and Hillary Clinton wanted opposition research on sort of the Trump team. They paid Fusion GPS to compile sort of a dossier of material on Trump for attack purposes, for semi-legitimate political purposes. It's slimy, it's mudslinging, but it's legal in that strict framework. And they paid, what, $160-some thousand for this dossier. In order to compile the dossier, this is the funny part, Christopher Steele leaked salacious information to members of the lamestream media that he knew presumably would report on it because they were also sort of in with the DNC and Clinton. You got to realize, if you look at the WikiLeaks releases on the DNC emails and Clinton's emails, it turns out that they were openly communicating with CNN and MSNBC. So when they mention Yahoo News, I wouldn't be surprised if they occasionally emailed them too. Yahoo News then reports on some of this. This is just one instance, but it's part of the larger picture, so I got to talk about it. Christopher Steele then takes the write-up from Yahoo. Now, he was the leaker, but the DNC and Clinton don't know that. He takes that and then he feeds it back into the Fusion GPS dossier he's compiling in order to hand it off to the DNC so that they can do their op research. He's actually giving himself primary sources of info by being an anonymous leaker. So that's mind-blowing. That just shows Christopher Steele's a slimeball. But it goes further. It's much, much worse. The worst part is that this Fusion GPS dossier that was knowingly at the time, it was known to be false at the time, was used and successfully used to grant FISA applications warrants to conduct surveillance on those associated with Trump. There's the smoking gun. That's exactly what Trump said happened. Hey, yeah, I was spied on. This isn't about Carter Page. It's not about any other particular underling that Trump could be associated with, or they work for him, or he talks to them, or they got contacts that talk to Trump. It's not about all those people. It's only about Trump. Here's what actually was the goal. I can tell you this. The goal, and it doesn't say this in the memo, but it alludes to it. The goal was to conduct surveillance on Trump on behalf of the DNC and Hillary Rodham Clinton. Absolutely, that's what was going on. Now, or to do so within the framework of the FBI with people like Christopher Steele, to justify that surveillance so then it could be leaked to the media, running interference for Hillary Rodham Clinton. Either way, it's basically roughly the same effect. That's what ended up happening. It's an attempt to usurp the democratic process of the country. Now we know, I think, after all of this time, because think about it. If Christopher Steele was leaking stuff to the lamestream media, would those groups not know maybe a little bit of the goings-ons behind the scenes? Don't you think they had some forewarning? Why do you think they've spent so long trying to claim Trump usurped our democratic process? Because it's a projection. It was the Democrats trying to usurp the democratic function of the country. And it has nothing to do with Russia. because the Russia stuff is prefaced on a bunch of bullshit that was bought and paid for by the DNC. It's way worse than Watergate. They attempted to strangulate the US election system, and they're still attempting to this day to kneecap Trump and prevent him from doing anything based on material that was knowingly false, fed to the media by the same person compiling it, giving it to the FBI to grant a FISA warrant so that then they could go off and dig for more information. And apparently they never found any, because I'm not seeing it. There's no grand leak saying, oh yeah, here's an email of Trump talking to Vladimir Putin and telling him that he bends knee before him. We don't have that, so I guess since so much surveillance was conducted, it doesn't exist, dude. These are the inner circle of Trump's people. You would think if he's going to disclose to anybody other than Vlad himself that, oh yeah, I'm working for the Russians, wouldn't you think that it would be his inner circle he would occasionally talk to about this sort of thing to get advice or whatever? No, here's the problem. It goes even further, potentially. It could go further. It could go literally into the Mueller probe stuff with Manafort and Flynn and all these others, because it was used as a justification to begin the targeting process of surveillance in the first place. It appears it may have metastasized further than that. So now we are in a situation where people who actually may have severely broken the law, they might get off scot-free, because they might end up through this investigative process. It might be found out, oh yeah, that was basically, it was prefaced on, again, a falsely issued warrant that relates to the original fusion-based warrant. So you could have just seen multiple people who actually, you could see like Manafort and Tony Podesta get off the hook or something. This is extremely worrisome. And I'm seeing some people on Twitter, the damage control has already begun. There are also people saying, oh, this is just stuff we already knew. No, we did not know that the FISA warrants were issued because of Fusion GPS. There was speculation. There were people like me who said it was pretty fucking obvious that's what happened. But then there were people who said, well, no, we don't have evidence, so we can't report on it. You also never have evidence of any wrongdoing on Trump's part. You report on it every single day. And now I think we know why. It's because the media was taking anonymous tips from people at the FBI itself, maybe other intel agencies that simply didn't like Trump and wanted Clinton to win, or they want the Democrats to come back in the midterms, so they're trying to do muckraking now. And it's all based on stuff that was knowingly false. Then we find in the memo, Comey briefed Trump on the dossier, knowing that it was false and openly stating it was false. Isn't that even crazier? Head of the FBI, who mysteriously leaves, and McCabe is involved, he leaves. The CEO of the DNC leaves. It seems like everybody is resigning lately. Trey Gowdy's like washing his hands of it. I don't even think even some of the Republicans, they're sitting there chuckling about it because it involves a huge DNC level scandal. But at the same time, even they don't seem to want to deal with it. They're like, oh, what gorgonic monstrosity is going to result from this? It's unconscionable that this would happen in a country that supposedly is a functioning democracy, a functioning democratic republic. Think about it again. Just a recap for anyone that didn't hear it the first time. Material that was known to be false was accepted. Was accepted first by the FBI. They knew it was false, but they accepted the info, submitted it to the FISA court. They're like, yeah, how do you prove this? I guess they never even bothered to ask him. And the FISA court actually granted warrants based on it. It involves Yates. It involves Rosenstein. What the hell, dude? Trump was right all along. Yes, he was spied on. Yes, there was an attempt to target him from the intel community itself, involving partisans loyal to Hillary Clinton and to the DNC. Yes, the DNC and Hillary Clinton sat by. Don't you think some insider under the Obama admin would have noticed that the dossier was the same fucking one they had already seen that Christopher Steele gave over to the DNC in the first place? Like, oh, this looks a little bit familiar. Don't you think that they would have noticed? Don't you think somebody within the Democratic parties, the mid to upper ranks with access to the original, doing the opposition research, would have also been aware of the evidence presented at this proceeding if it involved somebody who was running for the presidency? Don't you think somebody noticed that fact? Oh, I can almost guarantee you that people notice that. They're not going to say anything. No, they love it because they're like, ah. Yeah, now we can get some dirt that wasn't paid for by us that might actually be real. And guess what? It doesn't look like they found any. It looks like Trump is as clean as a whistle. There are some people around him that laundered money years and years ago related to Mueller with Manafort or Flynn or Tony Podesta, some of these people that have been named. that aren't even directly related to the FISA memo. And like I said before with my other video, this is evidence that we need to get rid of this kind of surveillance. There should be a much better process implemented that prevents the rubber stamping of material when, if evidence can be presented that is known to be false by the FBI at the time, and a warrant can still be issued, how does the FISA court have any credibility at that point? How is there any credibility within the higher echelon of the FBI if they're taking material they know isn't real, that somebody from within their own ranks leaked to the press in order to compile the evidence itself, like a total circle jerk, and it can still be used by the FBI and accepted by the FISA system? Don't we think this is a little bit troubling? I think it's way more troubling than, hey, screw Trump as far as that's concerned. That deals with people, irregular average Joe people can be on a FISA warrant, dude. They can conduct that surveillance on anyone they want. They can do it in a blanket sense. Say, oh, we got 100,000 names here and we want to conduct surveillance on them, so, we're going to have to do that. The Fusion dossier is false. Christopher Steele's full of shit. The DNC is full of shit. There's a reason their CEO just resigned. Now they're on damage control, and they have the lamestream media helping them. I'm not surprised. I wonder how many of these people, how many of these pundits that are whining on Twitter about how this is a nothing burger, oh, how wrong you are, how many of these people got an anonymous tip at some point, whether they reported it on it or not, from somebody who sounded a little bit like Christopher Steele? I wonder, shall we give an over and under at maybe half a dozen or so? Yeah, there's a reason why these networks are trying to cover for their asses. So yeah, it is bigger than Watergate, absolutely. Material known to be false was used anyway by the FBI. They knew it wasn't real. Comey knew it wasn't real. He still briefs Trump on it. He's like, oh yeah, here's the Fusion dossier, Did you have Russian spies piss on the Obama's bed? Mr. Trump, it makes so much sense to ask you this. Come on. This is an attempt to usurp our nation. This is the swamp that Trump warned us of, I guess. This is the sort of weird shit that they do. At this point, all bets are off. Basically, any time any info comes out about anyone that's involved with politics, it's going to cast a pall over that, because they say, well, was this leaked by someone who just didn't like them? And it's going to be used for a FISA warrant or something. I would think it calls into question all sorts of weird shit that's been going on the last year. Mueller and more. Certainly does in my mind. But Clinton lawyers, it looks like, remember when the Democrats, like the heads of the FBI, like even McCabe, even McCabe himself, is like, oh yeah, well, sometimes agents have a personal political bias, but they would never let it get in the way of their job. But that's exactly what happened with Christopher Steele, my man. So, why would he resign? I wonder why. It's all beginning to fit together now, isn't it? So it's not clickbaity to say that this is the news of the decade. It's bigger than Watergate, absolutely. Yeah, you'll probably get more info on it now too, because they're going to want to investigate further. And keep in mind, Congress is usually shit at investigating anything. They can't investigate, why there's a brown ring in the toilet bowl most of the time. Democrat, Republican, at that point it doesn't even matter. They're in Congress. They've got to be dumb. They've got to be a little bit corrupt. And even they're going to want to investigate further. They still managed to compile at least this memo. It's going to be funny to see the fallout from this over the next couple of days. But you can bet that these idiots within the lamestream media, they won't actually admit that it's troublesome. They'll say, oh yeah, some agent, it turns out, had a little bias. Oh well, yawn, that's nothing. Or, oh, but Trump is a racist. He is controlled by Russia, so it's okay. Don't worry too much, people. They'll probably be trotting out that bullshit propaganda too at some point in the next 24 hours. So, happy day. It's wonderful to see, at least finally, get a little bit of closure here. I was briefly worried that maybe it wouldn't mention Fusion GPS, and so it would just be sort of a little bit of speculation. Oh, well, these text messages show bias, and here's a couple email exchanges or something, and it'd be nothing. It would be concerning, but it wouldn't be revelation exactly. This is a revelation, a true one. This is a very important day within politics. It will eventually be seen as that way, and people will be talking about this, I think, for some time to come. That's about all. Peace out.